Guys, I want to welcome you to Celebre's Grow Big Conference 2025. Welcome, everybody. I want to welcome our franchise partners. I want to welcome our vendors. I think we have over 21 vendors here today that make Celebre School possible. So let's give a round of applause for our vendors, please. And I'm not sure how they do it, but somehow they do it. They run a company and they also find the time to put on an amazing event like this. I have to give a round of applause to our corporate team, our corporate staff, and most importantly, Sam Commodary. I don't know how they do it, guys.
Thank you, Sam.
It's the little details that, I mean, these guys like work full-time jobs. They're like with me all day long, and then somehow this happens. So amazing job, guys. Thank you for this event, and thank you for all the hard work that goes into this.
We were just talking backstage, and it feels like, just a short time ago, we were all together in Nashville, and here we are a year later. The crowd has doubled at this point.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Actually, I was having, I think, conversations with Lou and Michael Saperstein last night. They were reminding me of the first conference in Baltimore. I think there was maybe 20 people tops, and I think 10 of them was the corporate office. So how far we've come. And guys, I really have to give you guys thanks and praise for us being here today. I'm super excited about this year's conference and the theme of this conference, because I believe that this conference, Grow Big, is really just a short version of really what Celebre School stands for, which is grow people big and small. So I want to start with thanking you guys for growing us as an organization over the last 5 years. So thank you guys for that. I had no idea what we were getting into 5 years ago, but man, do I know now. And I've always said I've underestimated two things in this journey. Number one was the friendship and the partnerships that we would establish. So thank you guys for being our partners. And as I look in the audience, I know each and every one of you, and I'm thankful for our partnership. So thank you guys for being here today.
We could feel that in every interaction. We've had great conversations. We started off the day yesterday, fantastic. Visiting with Deepti and Projecta, you guys knocked it out of the park with your actual groundbreaking. We're so excited for you to grow big. I have to tell you, you two were fantastic, but your daughters stole the show. They were perfect, and no wonder. They have fantastic moms. And then we visited with Mindy at Dallas Arts District. There you are. Thank you for hosting us. And congratulations. Mindy also had her surprise visit yesterday and had fantastic brand and class scores. So congratulations with that. And then we had such a wonderful time last night at our social.
Amazing.
It was just the perfect mix of friendships and learning and growing big and sharing with each other, reconnecting. And I could see groups of people talking, no matter if you were from Boston or Florida, everybody was together and connected. Of course, all of our Texas people, but it was fantastic. We're like, wow. And you're like, oh, we're friends from training, and just the relationships that everyone's building together.
Who had a good time last night? Because if you say you didn't, you're lying, because I was there, I saw it. And it reminds me of a wedding, right? You walk into this wedding, and it's just family, and they're hugging, and they're kissing each other, and they're telling stories. So just thank you guys for that. And that really proves to me that this mantra, our mission of growing people big and small, is alive and well. And I started out by saying thank you guys for growing us. Thank you for growing me as a leader in this position. And I want to drill down on what really we mean by grow people big and small. And again, it starts with us. But ultimately, my job is, what I've discovered over the last 5 years, is my job is really to help you become entrepreneurs and business leaders, and using the Celebre platform to do that. So I'm super excited. That's what gets me out of bed every single morning, is helping people become entrepreneurs and true business leaders in their communities. And look at this room full of them today. Thank you guys for that. And in return, your job is, through your competencies, your job is then to take those competencies and leadership skills and transfer them to your leadership team, right? Help them grow in leadership in their positions. We know this for a fact, right? A lot of your leaders, a lot of your directors, a lot of your assistant directors have come from other brands, and they think they know how to lead a school. And sometimes we find out the hard ways that they really don't truly understand how to lead a school the way Celebree leads a school and what it expects in Grow People Big and Small. And then in return, they take that and they give that to our teachers. And they help them through the teacher competencies and growing them big in their positions. And then ultimately, they transfer those competencies to our children to make sure that they're having an amazing experience inside of our schools, making sure they're hitting these developmental milestones, and ultimately prepared to enter into kindergarten. We got that? We believe that? That is what we're here for, guys. That is the Celebree difference. The day that I don't hear that is the day that we're like everybody else. And I hope that day never comes.
Absolutely, and that's what brings the fun, right? Watching the talent in your school develop, grow from an aide to a teacher into a director position. So that should give everyone so much joy and pride. But let's kick off with our results since we were last together and take a look back at 2024. So last year, we added 18 franchise partners.
Who was a part of last year's award? Nobody? Hands high. There was 18 of you guys here somewhere. There they are.
All right. We were busy signing 25 LOIs. We had 26 projects under construction, and that construction averaged 5.2 months. That resulted in 8 COs, and we opened 9 schools in 2024. That took us to 29 open franchise locations.
Who opened last year? Awesome.
Got it.
All right. Congratulations, guys.
And when Richie said earlier, the brand is alive and well, this is a statistic that absolutely proves that. System revenue broke 100 million in 2024. Wow. So I think my next slide, though, is one of my favorites. This is evidence that the mission is alive. Celebree is growing in every one of your communities and across the United States, and that brings brand value. There are more than 7,000 children growing small under Celebree. Personally, though, I think my favorite part of 2024 was spending so much time in the schools with all of you. Being with our FBCs and visiting your schools, having conversations, watching you interact with your teachers and your school director, kneeling down with children, knowing everybody's name, it just feels like the Celebree culture. So that opportunity for me to learn, for me to listen, for me to either add some expertise or say, here, utilize this tool, or just to have a listening ear and say, yep, you're on your journey, and here's what comes next in that journey. Here's what to expect. Here are some obstacles and some ways to overcome those obstacles. Or listening and saying, this isn't right. If we tweak this a little bit, or we adjust our process, then like Richie said, we learn together. And I know you've had those same experiences.
Yeah, and again, that helps us grow in the organization.
Yeah.
You know, one of the questions I quite often get asked is, how are we handling the growth? Are we prepared for the growth? And so my commitment to you guys has always been, we will be ahead of the growth as far as infrastructure and support for you guys.
It's actually a competency. Recruit, hire, and staff.
My competency?
Hire in advance of needs.
Exactly.
Hopefully that rings true with everyone, right?
Am I getting an 8 in that category of competencies, I hope? Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
He's winning.
they'll let me know.
Look at this team.
So in 2024 alone, guys, and to help prepare for the growth of the organization, especially knowing that we're going to open additional 22 schools coming up. I think I might have jumped the slide there. We added Bob Skopanich from our new CFO on the Child Services side. So Bob, welcome. A lot of you guys know this. Bob came from Goddard. It started with them. I think they had 100 locations. When he left, they had over 500 locations. So Bob has brought tremendous value to the Celebree brand. Mark Lubin, our Chief Development Officer. Mark, welcome. This guy needs a little bit more energy level, but other than that, he's perfect. If you guys haven't had a chance to meet Mark yet, please find your way to find him. It'll be a treat. So welcome, Mark.
And we've operationally added some resources as well. Angel and Debbie joined us as FBCs, keeping with that 1 to 10 commitment that we've made to you, that high touch interaction, knowing your school. So Angel and Debbie have added to our FBC talent at this point. Mike Forrest, he's been here, but why we included him is we've added the role, and he is killing it in this role. The Director of School Growth is absolutely making a difference already. Mike is working with people in the pre-opening journey. So from lease signing, welcome center, into about 2 to 3 months of open operation, making sure that you guys start off right, that you have your teachers hired, that you've enrolled children, and that you're kicking things off together. And then finally, to field all of those phone calls that the marketing team and you have been working so hard through Community Connections, is adding 3 more people to our enrollment center. So we added Alyssa, Ebony, and Lauren to Phil's team. That brings us to 11 people in the enrollment center. It is busy in there.
It is busy. Congratulations, guys, and welcome. Mike Forrest is a legend. I mean, Mike Forrest is a legend in our industry. We're so blessed to have him. He truly is.
Absolutely, and yeah, we'll talk about that a little bit later. So back to spending time in the field. I know you're talking to people all the time on the phone. Every time you're just like, I just got off the phone with this person, and sharing his interactions and his conversations, and I'm coming back after being out at schools Wednesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays, and we're connecting on Monday mornings. We call it, Monday morning coffee, and we get the whole executive team together, and we kind of share our experiences from the field during the week. But one thing really stands out as the number one out of the 5 KPIs, and this is what we're noticing, is engagement, right?
Yeah.
Entrepreneurship is not a spectator business, right?
Not at all, guys. You guys know this. I mean, what we want to share with you and pour into you is what we have found over the last several months of what makes a very, very successful franchise partner, a very successful entrepreneur in general. Number one, as Allison mentioned, is their level of engagement. And I don't mean their level of engagement in the business. I mean, that's important, you have to be there. But the level of engagement in their owner competencies. Is there anybody here that doesn't know their owner competencies? It's probably a horrible question because I don't want to embarrass anybody. But if you don't, it's the Bible, guys. The level of engagement, and as Allison talked about, that is a part of our commitment in growing you in your positions, is through these competencies, helping you understand how to coach and develop, recruit, hire staff, like all the important competencies as an owner and a business leader and an entrepreneur. That is our job. That's your FBC's job to pour into you to make sure that you're growing inside of those competencies. So number one, the level of engagement in those competencies and giving us the opportunity to grow you.
And then third is ensuring the brand standards. And we know why we're doing that. Number one, it's for our children, making sure it is a safe and healthy environment for our children to grow small. And then to protect and grow the brand, right? We owe that to Celebree and to each other. Many of you are opening multiple schools in your community, and you've connected, and we have these market meetings. So ensuring the brand is value to all of us.
Yep. And go ahead.
And then I was also going to talk about 30 years of experience, our tools and processes, right? The most successful franchise partners are following that. Some of you guys say, I'm following the recipe. I think Deep and Projecta told me last night, Allison, we're following it. We're doing this, this, and this, right? So I appreciate that, and we know that's going to lead to your success. That's why you became a franchise partner, so you're not in this journey alone.
And then ultimately getting to 85%, right? Being successfully, financially successful in the school. I don't think we're happy until we hit the 85%. 85% means everybody's happy. We're financially stable, we're making a ton of money, and now we're ready to move on to location number 2 and location number 3.
You talk about that all the time, resources. Resources come at 85%, whether you're reinvesting in your current school or you're growing to your next school, and your talent as well.
Yeah.
So ultimately, guys, we want in the next 2 days to have 2 major takeaways. Your KPIs, those 5 things we just talked about, we want you to know the Celebree difference, how growing people big and small grows your business, whether it's in recruiting and retaining talent, whether that's through the enrollment process when you're giving a visit and telling parents about the Celebree difference. It's important. It's what sets us apart. And then finally, like we've talked about, maximizing profitability and creating wealth for your family. And so many of you told us that is a major reason that you came to Meet the Team Day, right? We know a couple things are important, and this is a constant, having family and wealth.
Yep. Everything, guys, is surrounded around grow people big and small, right? Everything. Even our marketing is starting to change into making sure that that is what we're promoting, the grow people big and small. As a parent, I know there's two things that the families want. They want to make, the number one reason why parents leave school is what? Staff turnover, teacher turnover. We have that, right? We're growing our teachers big, right? And then the other part is growing our children. I want to know what value are you bringing to my child? And that's the small part. So everything we talk about, everything we do in our advertising, I know Phil and his team begins the call with, welcome to Celebrity School of Tulsa, where we grow people big and small. It sets the tone right away of who we are and what we stand for. And now we breathe into that, right? Now when they come to my school, the first thing I want to talk about is how we grow. Let me explain to you how we grow people big and small. And we know every single parent is interested in those two things, right? The teacher and what you're doing to promote the teacher, and what are you doing to retain and attract teachers, and what are you doing for my child? So every single tour is so easy, guys. It should begin with, here at Celebrity, we grow people big and small. And then everything flows from there. You don't have to have a script. It doesn't have to be word from word. It just comes from your heart because you believe in the mission and the value of growing people big and small. Does that make sense? Does that resonate with everybody? I mean, it's really that simple. When I talk to other people from other brands and I ask them, some of them are in this room, and I ask them, what I won't say any names, Goddard, Primrose, Kitty Academy, what do they stand for? They don't know. They can't say it. They don't know what they stand for. So if you don't know what you stand for as an owner, as a teacher, as a parent, if you don't know what you stand for, then how can you perform? It's impossible. So the grow people big and small is what really makes Celebrity.
And we're going to talk about that when we talk about conversion. There are examples all over your school. So like Richie said, it comes naturally, these conversations.
Yeah.
And believe me, we go into plenty of schools as we are visiting markets and in plenty of our competitors, and no one else is doing it. So it really is a Celebrity difference. Yeah. But let's take a look ahead.
So look ahead of 2025, guys. This year in 2025, we plan on signing 29 LOIs, 32 leases, 25 construction projects. How many do we have under construction right now? 26, thank you, Mr. Kelleher. 26, and we'll open 22 schools. How many of you guys are planning on open this year alone? 22.
Ooh, it's gonna be a busy year, exciting year, right? We're growing big. But one of my commitments to everyone in this room is to focus on your individual school's profitability, right? And that comes through enrollment and improving our conversion. So later today, we're gonna kick off our commitment to elevating our conversion and helping grow you big in our ability to do that. Because your profitability is ultimately brand success.
Yeah. Let me give you a little insight on Richie's head and what I'm thinking. When I travel and visit you guys in your schools, and I think yesterday and last night, I probably had 15 unique conversations with our franchise partners, right? That's my job. My job is to listen for how are you doing, ways to improve, and are we moving forward? And last night I was thinking about this. The journey is the journey, guys. And as much as we want that journey to be perfect, it never will be. Right? But we fight hard every single day to make that journey perfect. And what I mean by that is this. Everybody's on a different path, but they're on the same journey. Does that make sense? And the journey, at the end of the journey, is to have a very successful school. And that's what we're driving towards. But the path is very different for everybody. And we can't control the path because everybody learns a little bit differently. And everybody executes on those competencies a little bit differently. And sometimes you're not ready for that competency because you're still focused on this competency. We'll hear about this a little bit this afternoon. But I can assure you this, every single day we're looking for ways to help improve the journey and help you on that path. And what I mean by that, it might take me 4 months to find my location. It might take Allison 14 months to find her location. Why? there's a thousand different reasons, right? I might start with 25 children in month 1. Allison may start with 5. But the journey's the journey, right? And the ultimate outcome and what we're focused relentlessly on is making sure that journey comes to the same ending, which is a very successful school. Does that make sense? I had this epiphany last night, like, it's impossible, Richie. It's a fool's game. You can't make every single journey perfect because everybody's path is different. And just like children, I'm not saying you guys are children, but everybody learns differently and everybody is on a different path. Everybody's from different backgrounds. Some of you guys are amazing at analyzing. How many of you guys are, this is gonna be cool. How many of you guys are really, really, really good at analyze business results? Yes. Right, very few, but that's one of our competencies. So for the other 150 people, we have a lot of work to do, right? How many of you guys are really good, feel you're really good at coaching and developing? We're in trouble, guys. We got a lot of work to do here. Oh, there you go.
We awarded them because we knew they were all 7s.
And thank you for saying that, because that leads me to this, guys. And I've seen this in my conversations, and I just want to make sure, and Allison, thank you for reminding me. You have what it takes. You're our partner for a reason. When we had the initial interaction, we looked at you through those competencies. And some of those competencies you might not even believe you had, but we do. And we believe that. Our job now is just to help you develop in those competencies on this pathway. But more importantly, I want to say this because I've seen it, and there was a couple of our franchise partners that we'll talk about later. Don't ever, this is one of the mistakes that we see our franchise partners make. Don't ever give that power away. Don't ever give those competencies that you have to someone else or rely on somebody else to deliver the competencies that you have as owners. You know what I'm saying? Right? Don't believe that you don't have it, because then you give that power to your director or your assistant director. It's a big mistake, guys, I'm telling you. It drags the business down. And we'll hear some of those testimonies this afternoon of those that felt that way and then grabbed control of their business, grabbed control of their competencies and said, I can do this, I have that. So as we develop these competencies and as you develop in your competencies, what happens? Confidence. The confidence level goes through the roof. Once you have confidence that you can run this school, you're good at running a school, all of a sudden the school goes whoop, like this. So don't ever give up those competencies and give that power to somebody else. You guys have it. We're partners with you. We're not partners with your director. We're partners with you, and we're proud of that.
So we've talked a lot about this, you and I, but let's invite up the executive team, right? We have tons of time to have a Q&A with everyone. So Richie, you want to invite our team
Sure.
up?
So guys, those that are ultimately responsible for delivering the 2025 strategy, I'd like to invite up, you're already on stage, Bob Skopanich, our CFO. Bob, come on up. Chris Kelleher, Lisa. So guys, this is an opportunity. This is not going to be, I talk to these guys all day. So this is not going to be me talking to this executive team all by myself. If you have a question, please raise your hand. I know we have some mic runners around. Please raise your hand and we'll get your question answered, okay? So we want this to be very interactive. This is a part of the Grow Big conference. This is pouring into you and growing you as entrepreneurs in this business.
Well, let me kick it off. Chris, I'm going to start with you. 2025, you hosted a GC Summit. So that was focused on improving the construction journey. So can you take our partners through that day? What are some of the key takeaways you guys landed on?
Sure, absolutely. So this is now the second year in a row that we've done this. Last year was hugely valuable to us. This year was even more. Really what we did is we hosted a summit that brought in some of our top general contractors from throughout the US. We brought in one of our top architects, we brought in several franchisees, and then of course the internal team that's working day in and day out to support the franchisees. And really there were three major goals. One, where could we find opportunities to reduce costs in the overall construction process? Where could we possibly find opportunities to reduce square footage, which has an impact on the total cost in the process? And the last was, where can we improve brand standards, right? We didn't want to overlook the opportunities to innovate within the Celebree School. So we spent an entire day, we tasked everyone with showing up to that meeting with very specific ideas that we could all digest together, discuss, and potentially put into action. That happened at the end of January, and I brought notes because I figured that this question would come up. I'll call out some of the things just as a point of reference. We identified right now, based on the projects, we found 24 different opportunities that we really wanted to take a hard look at. As far as cost reductions are concerned, we identified $5.10 a square foot worth of reductions that we're currently putting into place right now. Things like CPVC plumbing, the removal of hand washing sinks in certain classrooms, potentially looking at the removal of toddler bathrooms where appropriate, copper electric service, metal knockouts, a whole bunch of construction stuff, but it adds up, right? Now, in the same breath, I talked about opportunities to improve brand standards. So we did make some decisions on factory door finishes, upgrading the flooring, which has been a big topic of discussion, and gate alarms. So that actually added a little bit back to the total cost, $1.92. So right now we're sitting at $3.18 a square foot in cost reduction on the project. There's still 7 more projects that we're evaluating right now, which could potentially save us another 80 cents to $1 a square foot. So we're working really hard to continue to identify those opportunities. Also looking at square foot reductions and things like on-demand H2O systems, or modifying the IT closet, or those toddler bathrooms, which could reduce square footage, and that could add up to $10,000 to $20,000 in terms of total cost on the project. So that was the big effort. We're updating those standards right now. They're going to our build-out guide. That gets launched or re-released in May next month, and that'll be able to go out to everyone and put into place real time.
So Chris, I'm thinking, as you know, one of the 22 that are in construction right now, are those savings holding true with, I know there's a lot of rumbling of, construction costs and tariffs, and are we seeing that savings hold true?
It's a little early to say that it's holding true. We've already implemented those changes within the architectural drawings, so that those that are in architectural drawings and beyond, those that are going into it, they're going to be able to see those savings. There is also an opportunity to make adjustments during construction right now if we can do an ad hoc adjustment while everyone's under construction.
But at this point, we're not seeing any results from
it's a little early
rumblings.
Based on the timeline to get that through. It's still a little early. I would expect we'll see that within the next 3 to 4 months.
Got it.
All right, thank you, Chris. And I love the alignment with our vendors, right? And the GC, setting those standards, and just the day together is a relationship as well. Laura, I'm going to ask you next. Personally, I love seeing the incredible potential numbers that are happening in our pre-open schools, right? Those numbers are fantastic in new markets especially. So can you talk to us about what led to that success, and then how other partners can emulate that?
Absolutely. I think it has to do with mindset. I think Richie and Allison both set the standard for today. It's really about the mindset that the new people are having, the rock star franchisees that we have in the field. I mean, going back to the groundbreaking that we had yesterday, seeing Bubbles, the goldfish there, did everybody see Bubbles? Like, I loved that partnership. I think right there is a true example of what we're talking about. It's being intentional, it's being proactive, it's building the relationships. You guys have spent a lot of money to be a franchisee, and you need to put in 110%, and you're going to get 110% back. So it's about the effort. I think we treat pre-opening as day one versus the school opening as day one. So we want to set ourselves up for success, and everything you're doing every single day is going to have a whoosh factor. It's going to pay off. And just think, everything's not a lead generator. We need to generate brand awareness. People need to learn who Celebree is, how to say Celebree. So when they're searching for you, because you've done all these community connections activities out in your community, they see Celebree in the list when they search daycare near me, and they're going to click on you because they saw you somewhere. They met you at a chamber event. So all of those types of things that you're doing are super important. And remember, as Richie said, everybody has their own journey. So if you go to something and you don't get a lead, that's okay, because their timing might not be your timing. But they eventually will come to you because they got trust from you, they met you, you were charismatic, you told your story, and they fell in love with it. So just remember that. Don't have imposter syndrome. I know we all get it sometimes. We chose you for a reason. You guys are rock stars. And so I think that's really made a difference, is being intentional. Don't wait for people to come to you. Get out in the field and find them.
And like you said, we're seeing so many great examples of that.
Yeah, so many. I mean, Carl, I can see people now. Carl, you're killing it. You're dancing on social media. You guys, social media. The marketing team is obsessed. The marketing team is obsessed with you guys. We get all, like, we'll all be on your social media, and we're like, guys, did you just see the transition moon he did? Did you see Carl dancing? I mean, we love everything you're doing. I mean, you're giving all, like, you're giving all the updates, the construction updates.
Yeah.
All of that stuff. You have to grow your following, though, too. So remember, you keep posting on social media, but if you don't tell people that you're there, nobody's going to learn about your journey. And you want to get people engaged so they're following you along on your journey, and they fall in love with you. And then when you're ready to open, then they're ready to come see you. So, and just making it easy for everybody too. I think having good welcome center hours, like all of those things, like just being available. I mean, because this is your legacy. So.
Awesome, thank you.
Sure.
Lisa, you rolled out Career Plug this year, right? Take us through how that's helped our franchise partners. And if a partner hasn't started yet in that with Career Plug, how can they ensure a seamless transition into that?
So Career Plug was really in response to a pain that we saw our franchise partners having, right? It was, how do we recruit? How do we get top talent in? And we could see that Indeed was just by itself not going to be how we could do it. So in addition to the grassroots, we rolled out Career Plug. Now, for those of you who maybe are in your journey where you haven't heard about Career Plug yet, or are not at that point yet, it is something where it's an applicant tracking program, basically, where we've been able to upload all of our tools, all of the resources, everything that you have access to from job postings, that allows you to then personalize it to your school as far as your benefits. And then with one click of a button, it goes to 17 different job boards. And what we've really found is that it has greatly increased the number of candidates that are happening, decreased the time for contact. At this point, last month, in the month of March, we had 1,500 people apply through Career Plug to be a part of the Celebree family. So it definitely has been a game changer for us. I have some more information about something that they're actually going to be rolling out a little bit later on that we can talk about some more. But what is the most impressive is that we're seeing a 15% click to apply rate. And those of you who were on a call that I held last week, you already heard this, but basically when an applicant is searching for a position and they are looking through, there's so many opportunities out there. And a lot of times people will click on, and if they don't see something that inspires them, that draws them in, they click right off and move on to the next one. The average is a 7% click to apply rate. We are at a 15% click to apply rate. And even Career Plug, they were like, that's really incredible. That shows that what you're posting, what you are preaching of this grow people big, people are attracted to that, they're inspired by it. So that's where, they're inspired by the job posting, so then when they call you, how are they then inspired by the phone call? Are they then, or when you're reaching out to them to do the screening, are they hearing that same message about the growing people big? For those of you who have not gotten activated on Career Plug, their onboarding services are exceptional. These individuals are truly hiring experts. They can tell you, let's say you posted a job and you're not getting a lot of traffic. They can say, you know what, in your area there's saturation happening. Let's start putting things on social media. They will give you additional strategic opportunities for you. Or they might say, you know what, people they are clicking in, but they're not applying. Let's change around how this posting sounds. Let's move something different to the top, and let's start testing it out that way. So I would just say, take advantage of the opportunity. You can just assign right away for you to sign up for a training with them. If you don't have your calendar activated on Career Plug for the self-scheduling, very much highly would encourage you to do that as well. So just take advantage of that resource because it has been a game changer for a lot of our franchise partners.
Another example of a fantastic partnership. Was it maybe 2 weeks ago, Career Plug actually did a coaching session with our franchise business coaches, teaching them how to elevate their ability to coach you, utilizing their resource. So we dove in, how do we get reports? How do we analyze what information is in there so we can continue to give that to you and develop you in our most important competencies, talent.
Lisa, talk the second phase of that, once a school is up and running and we're using Career Plug to attract the talent through our promise to grow people big and small. Touch a little bit on this, I believe the second phase of that is actually growing people big and small inside the organization and making sure that they're on the pathways.
So from an investment cycle and a competency standpoint, and you know what, I'm just gonna jump into kind of something that Career Plug is gonna actually help with this now. So we all know, obviously, it's all about the competencies, right? It's about the investment cycle, making sure that your directors are doing the classroom observations, make sure that you're doing individual growth plans with your directors, and really seeing how they can grow, where they can grow next in their opportunities with you. And actually what Career Plug is doing now is they're about to roll out something that will allow you to actually continue the journey in the Career Plug site. So right now, when you hit hire, it will actually, like the funnel sort of ended, right? You don't really do anything else with them in that system. They are now going to be rolling out a new suite that's really their retention suite. And the best part, no extra cost of any point. Woo, thank you. So basically what this will do is allow you to continue the onboarding process, including we can put all of the videos in there, we can put all of the paperwork for your state in there. So when that person gets hired, they automatically get a link to now start their onboarding process with you through Career Plug. It's not something that you're mandated to do. If you want to utilize your payroll system for that, that's fine. But it will help you to continue to monitor that journey. You can do, it's kind of like a Listen 360 for your employees. You can continue to do employee surveys through that site, as well as document the performance management that you're doing with them. So documenting when you're doing IGPs and doing their annual reviews. And it's really going to be a one-stop shop for the employee journey. So I would just say, making sure that you are really sticking to the investment cycle, how you're tracking that, so you don't miss a beat in how you're growing your people big and ensuring that connection.
Thank you. Such a resource. Bob, your turn. All right. What are some adjustments since you have been analyzing the business since you came to Celebrate in terms of tracking our franchise partners' success when it comes to their capacity, their profitability? What are you seeing?
Yeah, thanks. And thanks everybody for all the warm welcomes, for being new. It's been great to meet everybody. I think the biggest change so far, and I think it'll probably be one of the more impactful ones going forward, at least the concept, if not the specific data, is the introduction of the cohorts. It's something that historically I found really useful in kind of any multi-unit concept, but not just kicking back your own financials to you, you have that information, but making that kind of value add, right? I don't really believe in collecting information and data if we're not going to do something with it and get it back to you and hopefully be impactful with it. And for those that don't know, the cohorts are, we take the mature schools, which is maybe a newer term, but schools that are over 18 months old. That way it kind of creates some normalization and we eliminate the ramps and look at how they're performing based on their occupancy. And we kind of group them, right? So at the moment, there's not a whole lot of mature schools. So we have 3 groupings, those that are below 60%, between 60 and 80, and over 80. But by doing that, everybody has every system has walking around knowledge, right? Payroll should be a certain percentage, or, whatever, your food cost should be something. And, you need that to sort of operate on a day-to-day basis, right? You need to have these kind of general KPIs you're walking around with. But the reality is, when you're 50% occupied, your payroll's not generally going to be as low as it's going to be when you're 90% occupied. And by grouping schools together, you can kind of see that a little easier. So it's a little bit more motivating, right? So you can see what the impact of moving up to the next group will be, but also you can compare yourself versus a tighter group of peers, right? So if you're 70% full, you can look at other schools that are around that full and say, okay, this is what I'm doing this is what the average school is doing. I'm doing better in these 2 things, I'm doing worse in these 3 things. And then it gives you an idea of what you can be focused on. And I always felt that one of the real benefits of it also is, and we've all talked about this, but it's always funny to say out loud, we kind of get that franchisees are going to be more impacted by what other franchisees are experiencing than what we're saying, right? I'm sitting in an office in Maryland, I'm not running a school. It's easy for me to say your EBITDA should be this, or your payroll should be that. I get that. It might be right, but if I'm on the receiving end of that, my first thing is like, what do you know? Like, you don't do it. But if I'm showing you data that says everybody else in your cohort is 45% payroll, and you're at 50, well, now you can't really challenge that much, and you're probably more likely to look at it and be like, what am I doing? Let me talk to some folks. So that's the idea of it, is to really get that information out. And for now, we're doing it with financials, but I want to roll that to other data points as well. Shameless plug for where we're going with this a little bit. We will be starting to be a little bit more aggressive, is probably not the best word, but aggressive in getting back to you and trying to get reports in a timely basis, right? This only works if we're getting everybody's financials. If the team isn't getting everybody's financials, we can't create these reports, and then they're not really that helpful. So that, I think, is one of the biggest changes. The other that's coming down is, we're revisiting the FTE calculation, trying to figure out maybe better ways to do that so we can be more aligned with what's in the system and what you guys are seeing. So that might be coming down the pike as well in a little bit. But the cohort reporting, I think, is the biggest change at the moment, and one that we'll keep. And I think you'll start seeing a lot of value from that as we get more consistent reporting and our team more consistently talking about it.
I don't want to scare people with the FTE
Oh, yeah.
calculation,
I'm sorry,
right?
yeah.
It's actually the number that you're telling us on a regular basis.
Yeah.
It's our calculation
Yeah,
that's probably going to change.
Yeah, the best way to say it is we've kind of heard, and it's filtered up, that we have different FTE numbers than you do. We're most likely changing to what you see. So you're not going to see a change.
No.
You'll just not have to correct us all the time. But we need to change our systems internally to account for that. So yeah, good call out.
Absolutely.
But on the capacity side, that will sort of impact that.
Right? And they're like, no, I know I started 6 children last week. I'm at this number. I am 100% sure I'm at this number. So
Yeah.
that'll be just evening the playing field for
Right.
everybody at that point. Awesome. And the cohorts, I know the conversations when the FBCs have been having these conversations with mature schools. There's a lot of learning there. There's a significant amount of discussion, right? Like Bob said, there's like, line by line, how am I doing it? Like sometimes you're like, yeah, I'm killing it. I've got fantastic revenue, but look, I'm losing it all in payroll. And just 1% of change, getting 1% closer to that average is a big difference at the bottom. So, all
Yeah.
those variable costs too.
Yeah, and you see some schools, and I won't call specific schools out for better or worse. But, a couple things that really jumped out. There was a school that's maybe 75% full that has the best payroll in the system as a percentage, right? They're doing something right. I hope that's how they're doing it. I'm going to give credit and assume they're doing something right, but that's something that we can learn from, right? Who maybe folks didn't think of. So I think that's the kind of stuff that comes out of it, right? You can really see like where I'm at, where do I need help, what can I improve?
And all that creates dialogue because your franchise business consultants know where that information is coming from. And when they see fantastic payroll control, they're going to talk to you about the tools. They're going to talk to you about the nightly payroll roll-up. They're going to talk to you about adjusting to manage it on a daily basis, right? So much information, so much data, fantastic changes.
So that leads us perfectly into a question I have for you, which is what improvements have been made to the FBC's visits and the conversations being had?
I think that comes down to relationships and our learning too, right? Understanding that, we are not the policemen in this situation. We are business coaches, right? And the conversations change because of that, right? Having a validation, first of all, that you're enjoying the business. That's number one, right? Starting off with, how's your business going? And then just seeing where that conversation goes. Instead of coming in with a clipboard and look, we're going to check brand standards. We're going to get to all of that. But really the value is in being a business coach, right? And that clarity of those 5 KPIs. Let's talk about engagement. Let's talk about your competency growth. Really, that's where it is. Of course, we're going to have to ensure health and safety and those things. But the priority of the conversation is our partnership together, making sure that you're growing. in your competencies. So I think that is the most significant change, and it's a big one, right?
Agreed.
You know, absolutely.
Agreed, and I think you nailed it with if you were speaking to me as a business owner, that's exactly the way I would measure how am I feeling. Am I growing in the competencies, and then which ultimately leads to am I gaining confidence?
There's
Am
nothing.
I gaining confidence in my ability to be an entrepreneur?
Absolutely. There is nothing that we do on a daily basis in a school that doesn't fit into one of those 9,
Yep.
right? So no matter where the conversation goes when we start our visit together, it ties back to one of those 9.
Yep, totally. And then ultimately, then when we start making money, I feel really confident, right? So put the competencies of a leader and an owner together. We're growing in that, and now we're starting to make money. All of a sudden, it's a new day.
Absolutely. That relationship between the FBCs and our franchise partners is imperative, for sure. Any questions? We've been doing all the talking up here. Jacob?
Yeah, I got a question.
I'm coming to you.
Can y'all touch on, in the journey, there's some anxiety around the financial risk of a slow ramp up.
Mm-hmm.
So can y'all kind of talk on, mindset and stuff we can do personally to kind of gain confidence around just making sure that you have a nice, smooth ramp up and kind of the mindset around it?
Well, that is our next major part of the day. So I'm going to give you a little snippet of it right now, right? We know 3 things contribute to school growth. We know the potentials, we know the conversion, and then of course disenrollments, right? We have to grow through enrollments. And so we're checking the box on potentials. The work that our marketing team is doing to get that, your investment in community connections and in investing in Inspire and the recommended spend is getting us to where we need to be with that, right? And then we get to conversion, right? That's the area of opportunity that we're really looking for in the ramp up. So it's no longer a potential problem. We've got that covered. Now, when families are coming, we need them to choose the brand, right? And I think we're helping with that in a couple ways. Mike being in his role and really, we've been meeting with you guys in this pre-enrollment journey. Mike and I did a 4-day week together, about a month and a half ago. And just literally, there wasn't even ground moved at that time. It was big piles of dirt everywhere. There was still a sign up, that's saying for lease, although you guys have just signed your lease, right? They're saying, here's the mindset. Here's where we need you to be to think about enrolling. So it really is starting from the beginning. Laura mentioned investing in that, the social media, the component, validating that. Now we have to do the work and believing in the pre-enrollment process, right? That is a whole mindset we're gonna talk about in time because my job is to analyze the business results. The numbers are there. The numbers are there.
And I would say this, Jacob, I would say it goes back to my comment of everybody's on a different path. They're on the same journey, and the journey is ultimately profitability. But everybody's delivering it a little bit differently. And why Allison said she'd give you a sneak peek, because in a few minutes we're really going to dive into that. Mm-hmm. But we believe that ramp up, as you're describing, it's a formula. And some people deliver and execute on the formula differently. But the formula begins, and that's the path, right? So not everybody is phenomenal at conversion.
Yes.
And so we're working with them on that. But it all starts, I remember probably 6 months ago, we had another epiphany, which was we would sit down, and every single week we look at every single person's financial numbers or the weekly number. And we would look at your school and it would have 30 potentials on the week, and we would look at somebody else's school and it would have 24. We're like, is that good or is that bad? And we really didn't know. We did know if you only had 6, that was bad, right? So in comparison. Then what we realized, let's actually go through the formula. So what we've decided is that when we look down the left column of everybody's school of potential, we have to see 30. We have to at least see 30 potentials per week. Or per month, I'm sorry. That's where the formula begins. And then from there, we're looking at 90% to go to a visit, and then what,
The contact
the contact rate, and then
visit schedule.
ultimately, even with a 50% conversion rate, you're enrolling 10 per month. And we believe that number because we believe in the formula. We know that through history, we are, I'm proud of our marketing team, every single school is at least 30 new potentials. And if we don't see that, we're asking why. And you should be asking why, right? But then we go to conversion. I was on a call with a school the other day, and I start that. That's my conversation. How many potentials have you had in the last 30 days? 54. I'm like, oh my God, we're killing it. How many visits? I think they had 18 visits out of the 54. Okay, what's going on here? We have a show rate problem, right? Out of the 15, they enrolled 4. 4. So where are we focusing? There. What are parents? 18 people came into your school and said no thank you. Basically what they said. No thank you. You don't have what you don't have what we're looking for. And they do it in a very polite way. We're still looking. We need to shop. We need to look at other schools. They're just very politely saying, you don't have what we're looking for. I'm sorry. But that's up to us, and we do it every single week to identify it and now put the resources behind it to fix it. And the reason of the conversion, it's all over the place. It's all over the place. But that is our job to get that and to get the number of potentials and making sure that that formula is working throughout your school.
Hope that helped. We're going to dive deep into that in a bit.
But the ramp is the ramp is the ramp. I gave you the answer to what we believe the average expectation should be of the ramp. 10, and we actually, you made a great point last night because we've been dwelling on this for like months now. And Allison made a great point in these projections is that, it's 30 per month, and then 95% of them, and Phil and his team's going to get a visit. Percentage, 90% are going to show. But also, even though you might have enrolled the number of 10, the most important number is how many started, right? Because that can be a little bit misleading. So we're actually going to now add that into the formula now, which is seeing that. Okay, you enrolled 10, great job. That's future revenue, that's future growth, but how many actually started? So we don't have this, this future growth out there, but we're not experiencing today because we need to experience it this month. We got to get those families to start. So that may be another opportunity. But most parents, they're ready to start within 2 weeks. Some look out ahead, but most are looking to start their children now. But I like the fact that we discovered that last night, and we're going to add that into the projections. Great question.
Yeah, I was going to say, who's next? Other questions? Sure.
Don't you start without me.
So we are really proud of the team you have here, right? We all. And the vision and the mission and everything celebrates around grow people big and small. You are committed for our development. Can you personally, either of you or all of you, share what you do to grow big? Maybe we can learn something.
Oh my Lord.
Wow. Should we go down the line?
What? Yeah, start down there.
Laura? I was on a podcast.
You mean besides eating? Because I fit right in with the theme here. I'm just kidding. Sorry, not a good joke. I would say, I've actually grew big here, just in general, like with my position. So I'm really excited to be in the role that I've been in for 3 years now, but didn't start out in this role. So just trying to persevere, learn the business, love being over top of this brand and multiple brands. This year, I've actually was on my first podcast. So for me, I'm trying to just get out in the world and be a thought leader and use the expertise. I've been doing this for a very long time, 28 years of marketing. And as you can imagine, it's really changed a lot. So just trying to be up on all the new trends and things that are going on. And I think, with the partners that we have, our vendor partners, like that's where we learn things too. So just making sure we have the right agencies that we're partnering with really helps us. because all of our channels are very distinct, and we learn from each other. But as far as like the expertise in our field, we go to conferences and we go and meet with other people. I sit on a couple roundtables every month with people in the industry and other industries too, and find those little chunks. And actually, a couple like Danielle and Lauren are starting to join some of those roundtables. So just trying to get stuff out in the marketing world that we can bring back here, and then within our team, we're always trying to grow people big, get them on that pathway of like, moving up and building a team underneath of them. So, and we believe in the team that we've built in marketing, and look forward to growing them and then adding more people underneath. And I believe everybody too is a big culture fit, which I love. I mean, I think, Brooke was the last one that came in. And she just fit right in with everybody. So and if anybody ever needs anything, wants anything, you feel, you're not getting something that you need, please, feel free to always reach out to me, or if you have a suggestion. We're always learning. I think all of us, as we're growing in this business, if you see something in the field that you love, please let us know, because we like to share it with other franchisees as well. So we're doing a marketing newsletter where we're letting you guys know what other franchise partners are doing, so you can emulate that, because why not learn from what other people are doing? I think the friendships in here and the networking in here is critical for everybody growing big.
Yeah. And I would say this, we actually use our own tools.
I was going to say
So,
that.
I mean, all the tools, everything we're talking about, the grow people big and small, I mean, each one of our executive team, they have their own IGPs, their individual growth plans, their core competencies, delivering, and actually one of the things that we added to the tool was one of their personal goals, which is very, very cool. So we actually use our own tools in growing people big and small also. And I would just like to point out, in my growth, I surround myself with people that I admire. And actually, one of my mentors is sitting here in the front, Mrs. Emma Dickinson, if you would please stand up, one of my coaches and advisors. She's the CEO and president of Home Helpers, 350 franchise partners, and so I surround myself with an advisory board that has really helped me grow in my leadership. So Emma, thank you for being here. And I know Jack's here too. Jack Munson's also here to support us from an advisory standpoint, from a marketing perspective. So there's a lot of mentors and advisors that I surround myself with to help me in my own personal growth. And then the 5 children and the wife. So, which is probably the most important. But thank you guys for being here.
I was going to say, you read constantly.
Yep.
Richie reads like 2 books a week, and we're always trying to see what he's reading so we can read ahead and get the cliff notes to see what's coming next with his discoveries in that.
I would say I have the easiest job to be able to do self-development, because I make probably over 500 professional development plans a year, and then the individual growth plans. And it's my job to find the resources, but I'm not just gonna find a resource and not watch it, read it, do whatever I need to do to validate it before it gets to you. So my whole job is sort of self-development, which is like the best job in the world. And then being in the room with like these brilliant people and being at the table, and I think in my 21 years, what I have learned from Richie in particular about strategy and just how to run a business. I mean, this has been such a growth opportunity for me. And I would also say, which might be something that's underestimated a little bit, is you can make your social media a development platform, right? So yes, if you're doom scrolling on Instagram and you're watching certain things, you're gonna get more of the negative things. But if you're looking up motivational speeches, and you're looking up things that connect with you and give you development, the more that you interact with those pages, the more of that you are given. So when I get up in the morning, a lot of people are like, you check Instagram first thing? I'm like, yeah, because it's not the latest celebrity gossip for me, even though I love that. It's really more about professional development. It's more about inspirational thoughts. It's how you start your day with energy and passion. And so I think you can really utilize that for good instead of for evil. So I would just say it's been, my position's probably the easiest to do self-development, and it's been a great opportunity for me.
So I think how do I grow myself big? I think that's a phenomenal question. When I hear that, I automatically think, how do I grow myself and my team big, right? And the first thought that comes to my mind is we listen. And we're working, I'm talking about the real estate team, the construction team, and they do a phenomenal job. And their positions are really tough because we're navigating very difficult conversations. We're having very transparent conversations, and generally they're difficult because there's a lot of pressure. But I think the reason that the team has gotten as good as they have, and the reason I think that I'm growing big is because of all of you. I've had the pleasure of working with every single franchisee in this room. And I do my best to listen and lean in and ask the next question or ask the difficult question, not to be there to console, but to seek to understand so we can figure out an opportunity to solve the problem that's in front of us, but also predict how that opportunity might arise with other franchisees and solve it for them before it's even a problem. So for me, it's very much about, and the entire team does this really well, is leaning in and listening, asking those questions and looking for those opportunities for improvement, not only for that particular franchisee's experience, but how can we create that improvement for the next franchisee's experience. So for me, it's the progress in the growing of the team, but the progress in growing of the process itself, which creates the better experience for you. I'll go into just a very specific example, the real estate process. Those of you that were the early franchisees, Katie, Kelly, really anyone that was early on, right? The real estate process was very much a process that was kind of tried and true throughout general commercial real estate in general. It doesn't matter what the business is. And we really had to flip that upside down. We had to look at it from a completely different perspective because what we were attempting to accomplish was unique. It was different than other commercial opportunities. And so you guys really provided the answers. The questions that you asked, the challenges that you had, we did our best to listen and actually modify that process in order to make it easier. It's not perfect. It's still really hard work. We obsess about it every single day, but through the ability for the team to listen and to come back and to provide feedback, we're immediately implementing that into our processes, which is helping the organization to grow.
Thanks. Great question. For me, I think it's not too dissimilar, right? I'm trying to learn. I'm relatively new here, so I'm spending a lot of my time trying to learn the business and translate that. So while I have a decent bit of industry experience, I'm trying to be conscious of things that I might have as conventional wisdom, or what I a lot of times talk about is like walking around knowledge. It's based on a different brand, right? And things that we do wouldn't necessarily work there, and things that they do wouldn't necessarily work here. And trying to make sure that I'm understanding our business, how we got to where we are, why we do things a certain way. That's really where I'm spending a lot of my time, trying to make sure I understand those things, not just the culture differences, but the actual differences in the business, so that I can take my experience and better apply it. It's you can't just cut and paste it over. Obviously, you're just kind of using the recipe example from earlier, right? You're just kind of combining two recipes, and it's gonna not be all that good. So my biggest part on the Grow Big, and I've been here since August, I guess, has been really trying to make sure I understand the business and all the different components of it and how we got there, so that I can better apply what I'm working on. Something like cohorts is something that was easily transferable. Other things, not as much. So really trying to pick and choose where that makes the most sense.
Fantastic question. I love it because maybe it gives you some insight about us personally. So, everybody's nuggets. I think everybody I share with that. Having mentors is really important. So our advisory group, an executive group that I belong to, having takeaways, even though that it is not related at all to our industry, leadership is leadership, right? Development and growth is there, regardless if you're building buildings or you're caring for children, right? So having those takeaways. I also, from being at Celebrate, am a big believer in strategy. So personally, every year I set a personal strategy and goals and milestones around that, and then choose a word. So words in my past have been like accountability, discipline, inspiration, like what and who I want to be for people and myself that year, right? And staying true to that particular word. I love that question. Anybody else?
You're going to be... Ladies first, Fakul, I'm sorry. You've been around long enough. Ask your questions. No, I'm kidding. Over to you.
Good morning, all. Thank you so much for sharing. Richie, you did mention books. I know great leaders read a lot. You know, they're continually learning. So I would like to ask if you could share some books, most impactful books that you'd recommend for us as we develop our leadership.
Wow, there's so many, and I love to bounce back. I don't want to be all leadership, but all leadership. I bounce them back and forth. I don't read nonfiction. That's one that I don't pay attention much to. But you know, there's so many great books. Think and Grow Rich is one. There's just so many.
Well, let's do a club, right? Like each
Yeah.
month you share
Yeah.
what you're reading and what you learned. That's a great, takeaway in the future, right? Of, hey, I just read this book, right?
Yeah.
And here's what I learned.
And also, it's not only books too. Like I find movies very inspirational to me too. Like just watching this character and seeing where they're at in their lives, and could I play that role, and do I want to be that person? It's just all this crazy stuff goes through my head. But and I think Lisa mentioned it too. Just because you're on your phone scrolling, it doesn't mean that you're not finding great things to learn or quotes or things that inspire you. I think I get two things. I get inspiration, but I also get vision from a book or a movie. I don't know. I don't know if it's a gift or what, but I'm a future guy. I'm today, but I'm also in the future. That's related to the company. That's related to my children. That's related to my family. And we talk about that a lot of who do we want to be, what do we want to be known for, and who do we want to be as we look forward. So I don't know. I get it from a lot of different sources. I never, those negative stuff never comes up on my feed. I'm surprised.
But a little shameless plug for the table that Stephanie and I will be at, the franchisee as a coach. We do have a resource that's like our top 10 leadership recommended books that you can come over and use a little QR code and get that resource. So if anyone's interested in coming to that table, we got you.
But to make this relatable, as I mentioned, we have a very strong advisory board. Mm-hmm. We have a Huffman Family Advisory Board just for the family, with Chris Steers a part of, and Michelle Mayer's here, one of our family financial advisors. The team that I have at the office is inspiration to me and has shaped me who I am today. It just comes in so many. The advisory board is for businesses, the advisory board for the family. I was a part of an organization called Vistage for many, probably 27 years. And that is a group of business owners, leaders that come together and help each other with different topics. So, over 31 years, you could imagine I've gotten a lot of knowledge from mentors and books and just people that have been brought into my life.
I was going to mention something too. You had mentioned Chris Steer. That's one of the things Richie gave to us was this opportunity to get executive coaching. So we meet with him on a monthly basis. And one of the things he shared with me, I guess almost 2 years ago at this point, it's called The Daily Stoic. It is a podcast. He has written books. It's by Ryan Holiday. And it's something that's actually changed my life. I don't know if anybody's heard of it or listens to it or whatever, but it's really about getting you in that right mindset every day. And it's a short, a lot of the podcasts are very short. You can listen to them 8 minutes, 10 minutes on the way to work. And it just gets you in that right mindset of just knowing that you're controlling yourself. It's not really about not having feelings. It's just being able to control what you can control and know that you've put 110% into what you're doing. And you might not get the reaction that you want from somebody, but you've put your heart and soul into it and own that. You only own yourself. Yeah. And having a calm mind, I think, can help in stressful situations. And we're all in high pressure positions right now, and it's, the world demands a lot of us. I think to get your mind right in that short drive to work or your longer drive, you can listen to a longer one. It just really helps. And then there's little chunks on Instagram. You can follow them. There's books, and it's just really good reading. And it's relatable.
And the more I think about that, I think it really depends on where you are in your life, right? Where are you in life of things that are important to you? Right now, the family's very focused on how to establish and how to structure a family office with the many brands that we have, and how do we set that up? And my wife and our children are 23 down to 15, and what does that look like as we start to prepare for them to, come out of college and enter and come back home? So we're constantly preparing and reading and surrounding ourselves with advisors to help us navigate that. So I would say that, generally, it's where am I right now? What am I focused on? What's important? And so then tapping into that knowledge, whether it's through books, podcasts, mentors, or other sources.
I'm over here with two-time award nominee this year, Vakul Goel. Pass it over to you.
Thanks, Sam, and thank you, everyone. So to answer your question, Sam, yes, I've been here for a couple of years, and I was going to answer what the question was going to be asked. So we do a book club. We actually work with all of our leaders, directors and assistant directors. We read a book. We do reflections once a quarter. We literally sit down and say, hey, what did we learn? How did we implement? So yes, it's a great question, but we do that. And it's really important because one of the teachers, I gave a book to somebody to read, and he said, or actually she said, now I read it, what do I do? So that's when I realized, hey, let's make sure that, let's start doing the reflection to see what we really learned and how we implemented those, how can we implement that in our day-to-day life. So, and thank you, Lisa, for you have been great support for providing those books. I mean, I actually got into reading because of some of the books you asked me to read. Going back to the question that I was going to ask, Chris, since we have almost, I was going to ask you in person, but then we have more than, in mid-20s of the franchises who are either in development or in design and so forth, right? Are you able to share some of the insights on those 20 plus cost savings that you talked about so we can implement them? I mean, me, I'm in design. I'm very close to wrapping up my design in a week or two. How can we implement those and before it becomes a CR, right? I mean, and how do we go about implementing those specific cost savings, whether it's whether it's $1 or 50 cents or whatever that per square foot? Every dime, every penny matters.
Yeah, great question. Thank you. So I actually brought them with me because I figured there would be some follow-up questions about this. So I have the full list with me sitting over at the table over there. I'm happy to grab some time. I'll speak, I guess, in a little bit more detail about some of them just to provide some more color. I was probably a little too quick in my response earlier that Richie asked. But we're looking at some big things. The hand washing sinks was one thing that I mentioned, right? There are certain classrooms where state licensing require a separate hand washing sink from the food prep station sink. And so if there are states that don't require that from a licensing perspective, are there opportunities for us to remove those hand washing sinks, right? You remove 6 hand washing sinks, that's 60 cents a square foot. That's $6,000 on a typical $10,000 project. Toddler bathrooms, where states don't necessarily require a toddler bathroom, and you have the opportunity to potentially remove that square footage, that's $10,000 a bathroom in terms of cost. So it is very state specific where we can create those opportunities. And by the way, we didn't just miraculously come up with these. These are all ideas and feedback from franchisees that are in the system here. The toddler bathrooms, there's hollow metal knockouts that go so you can see from the bathroom into the classroom, right? Those knockouts, those metal knockouts are expensive. There are opportunities to create the same exact result with a really nice wood casement, right? And cut the cost. That's 80 cents a square foot for 4 knockouts, right? When you think about the installation costs and primarily the metal frame. So those are the specific things that we've looked at. I do have that full list. The good news is those things that we've already approved and we've implemented has already been submitted out and is being submitted out to the architects. So hopefully it can get where you are right now with schematic design, that can get caught real time and instituted in. But we will actually submit, we're about 2 weeks away from submitting the updated build-out guide, which will have everything listed in there, and we can call out the very specific things that the architects would need to be aware of as they're doing design. Does that help?
I have a question for Allison. What are some operational improvements that we have made in the last year?
I think we touched on it earlier, but making sure that how we start is solid, right? And so I think adding the position that Mike Forrest is in is an additional resource. I think that is probably the most significant. Once your school gets momentum, you feel it. You understand, you've been in it, you're understanding operationally how to carry through the day. But in the beginning, you don't know any of that, right? And so having that additional person besides your FBC who's really focused on the same thing. So Mike is working with everybody in pre-opening. So what he's doing with welcome centers, what he is helping you establish your mindset, what he's doing to overcome your obstacles, that is a major difference that's happening. And we're seeing the results of that. People opening, and we'll talk about it shortly too, again, with so many more FTEs, right? Having that ability to, and that confidence we've talked so much about, to enroll from the start, that's really a game changer, right? Our FBCs continue, like we talked about, to have those discussions, to become more of a coach than an inspector, right? But this is the key to starting it off, right?
Yeah.
I think we have time for one more question, and who was over here? Me here? Maggie?
Kind of changing my mind about my question, but okay. I was actually a little more towards Chris again. I see that you guys are trying to save money in some ways, but I also noticed that there are larger expenses coming in as well, like the flooring is changing, so that's more expensive. The countertops in our reception space, that price went up as well. Like we'll save there, but then we're spending more there. Where's the balance here?
Yeah, great question. Thank you, Maggie. Really, it's a balancing act, right? We want to improve the brand standards. Obviously, we always have an eye towards that. We also have to recognize that these schools, it's like 150 children coming in and out of your house every day, right? So some of the investments, and this is feedback directly from the franchisees, we believe is very smart to implement, where it may cost additional dollars up front in terms of, the flooring, for example. That's a perfect example. It costs money to wax those floors, those VCT floors, the 12 by 12 squares. I can see everyone shaking their heads yes, going, yep, these things are really high maintenance. They start to look pretty beaten up pretty quickly. And so we simply had to make the decision, well, when you factor in the cost of the VCT floors plus the semi-annually strip and wax, plus the overall look of them and how long they wear, is it really worth the investment, or should we spend potentially $10,000 to $15,000 more and do a higher grade floor that's simply going to last longer, doesn't require the ongoing maintenance? So when we evaluate these different types of products and surfaces and things of that nature, we're looking at it long term so that it continues to hold up the brand standards and be high quality and doesn't require a heavy amount of maintenance or essentially turnover in terms of replacement. Is that helpful?
And those are things we're implementing in our corporate schools too, right? As we are refurbishing and renovating, we're upgrading those tiles for our brand standards as well, because we see the long-term payoff from that. Chris, can I stick with you for a second for another question? Or? Oh, go ahead.
Question with Carl.
Okay, I'm going to pivot externally, so fair warning. And this is probably going to be geared more towards Richie, Allison, and Laura, because you mentioned your roundtables. What are you guys observing or seeing externally? The external environment's been really tough for a lot of our clientele, inflation rates, et cetera. There's a lot of uncertainty around government funding for things like childcare support, right? And just what are you guys hearing and feeling? You guys are also very involved in the governmental affairs side. Mm-hmm. If you can just share some of that with us, I think that would be super helpful for us as we try to think about the next 12 to 24 months.
Sure. At a corporate level, our corporate schools are right at about 92% full capacity. So we're really not seeing any fallout of enrollment from layoffs or any federal cuts at this point. And correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, growth.
Actually growth of those that, which we were hoping, actually those that are actually being forced to go back to work or choosing to go back to work. So, Carl, we haven't felt any enrollment impact whatsoever. I'm super proud of what we've been able to accomplish from a funding source. I know in Maryland we were able to hold the budget of $550 million of scholarship money. So I'm super happy with the work that was done there with protecting the scholarship money and also protecting our Excels money for the growth of our teachers. So that's why I was interested in Chris's comment, because so far, we're not really seeing it on the increase in construction costs, and we're definitely not feeling it on the side of enrollments or policies or funding at this point. I think that's the last thing anybody wants to do is cut funding for preschool. The one thing that we learned through the COVID is there is no economy if there is no preschools. Parents are not going to go to work if they don't feel confident in finding a high quality program for their children. Mom's just not going to do it. It's not going to happen. So there is no economy without enough of preschools. And I think that's why there's so much attention being given to us now and so much resources that are being protected because they know that.
Can you talk a little bit about ECEC? You're dealing with that on a national level. And our franchise partners are also, thank you for getting involved on a state level. We've taken some pictures and shared out with some of you that have gone and did testimony locally and all of that. That's really important to get your ear to the ground, but I know you're talking to everybody.
Yeah, and it's another relationship. So basically ECEC is the top childcare brands in the country, basically. I sit once a month with Dennis Maple, and Dennis Maple's gone now out of Goddard, but all the top CEOs of all the big childcare brands. Right now, they're really focused on insurance, to be honest with you, and the high cost of insurance. I'm really proud of the work that we've done on protecting our insurance premiums and raise of costs there. But it's just another way for us to have these local representatives in so many different states from a political standpoint that are protecting our dollars, our policies, and our basically our dollars.
Absolutely, and we're connected to every state that we are operating in, even ones that we're now launching in. Colorado, I get updates all the time about their changes, not just in regulations according to the industry, but what's coming down the pike politically that would affect the industry. So we get pinged with those updates all the time, and sometimes it's like, okay, and I'm saying to Sam, who should I be talking to about this? Who is local that can influence this? Sometimes I just read it and I know it, right, for the future. Like, this is something to keep our eye on. Of course, public pre-K, all of that, that's something that we need to be in tune with as we grow and we plan for your schools. So I think our ears to the ground for that, but you're really the local influence of that. And when you hear it, bring it to us.
And the more I think about the question, Carl, there's three things that I'm focused on for us as a brand. We're growing ourselves into it. One is to have those political connections in every single state that we operate in. And it could really be guided by the cohorts, right? So I could, as we come into a market and we have 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 franchise partners, I see that cohort actually, having that relationship with our ECEC members here that are protecting policies and procedures, having fundraisers for these events. I know at my house a couple months ago, I had Goddard owners in my home. I had Primrose Goddard people in my home, Kiddie Academy people in my home, because as a whole, and we were there fundraising for some of our politicians to make sure that these scholarship dollars and policies were protected. And so I actually see that for the entire brand as you guys doing that for your states and us opening that door for you. And then the other part of that, it's three parts for me. Make an impact on our communities as a school and preschool. Number 2, come together and make political changes and protect dollars. And then 3, the philanthropic part and what we're doing as a brand and franchise partners philanthropically in the communities in the states that we serve.
I know we're close on time, but our very first franchisee, Katie Young, had a question, so I couldn't ignore her. So Katie, mic's to you.
I just wanted to talk a little bit about Chris and the construction, because now that we're open and operating, the flooring is actually something that is very heavily on my mind, and recommendation, invest in the better flooring. But now that we are open, operating, I can't go back. What would be your suggestions as a financial standpoint to turn over these floors, and a, execution standpoint? Is it something that you think is a good idea for us to invest in long term?
Yeah, thank you. So there's a lot of different factors that you need to consider, right? The floors are designed to last a certain amount of time. At some point, if they start to look, too dingy or too worn out, then you really have to think about replacement. The good news is they can be replaced. The VCT floors, you can actually put new laminate flooring right over top of them. I know personally, after working on the corporate schools, that is certainly a job that can be done over a weekend. 6:30 when the kiddos get out on Friday afternoon, that kind of thing can be knocked out in a matter of a day and a half. You do have to think about the CapEx expense associated with that and start planning for that, right? I'm sure as you're operating your school, you're setting aside some cash to handle those CapEx expenses and those refurbishment expenses, and that should be absolutely in one of those categories. So, my approach would be pick a time when you think it's going to be right to get it done. We can certainly help you plan and coordinate the efforts associated with getting that swapped out over the course of a weekend, and then be ready to leverage that CapEx expense as appropriate.
I want to end this conversation with just giving you guys some insights on the three things that I'm sitting here listening. Three things that I am focused on right now, and we'll fix and solve. Number one is that we're going to bring in your finance journey in-house. We're going to bring that. I think that's one of our biggest blind spots. We know where you stand with the real estate. We know where you stand with construction site and operational. The only blind spot that we have, is your finance journey. So we're going to actually bring that in-house. We're working hard. I know Capital Bank, one of our partners, is here today, and a couple other banks. We're going to bring that journey in-house so we can help monitor that and measure that and make sure that you guys are getting the best deal possible. That's a part of being a franchise partner of Celebree, is making sure you're getting the best quality of vendor at the best price. So that's number one. I think we should have that probably in-house in the next 45 days, where we'll actually be holding your hand and helping you in that journey and making sure you're getting the best rates and the best terms available, and everybody gets the same terms. Maybe not the same rate. That might be a little bit of fluctuation. But but everybody is getting 12 months free interest only loans. So I'm going to have that in place in the next 45 days. The other thing that I'm working on is the fact that I'm not happy. The second thing is this: we have to make sure that these schools are getting open on time and on budget. On time, on budget. I'm going to figure that out. I'm going to figure out why they're not opening on time, and I'm going to figure out why they're not opening on budget. And we're going to, because it's a game changer. If you open 30 days, 60 days late, Carl and I were talking about this last night, that's an extra probably $50,000 that you've burned of your working capital. I'm not putting you in that position. You will not be in that position. So that's what I am building the team to talk about right now. Financing, journey, we got it. On time, on budget. And then lastly is making sure, and we've talked a lot about this morning, making sure that these schools are ramping up as promised, back to the projection. I feel really good about that one because we can see it in the numbers. We can see the 30 and we can see the enrollments coming in with that timeline. But we really got to figure out this on time, on budget. And listen, we've built a lot of schools. Construction is a wild card, but I think we can make that better and also help protect our franchisees in the beginning through the lease language to make sure none of this. I mean, right now we get stuck. We're dealing with a couple of things, and the biggest one is permitting, right? I mean, these counties are they're I'll use their language. They're under-resourced and they're struggling, especially with the states that we're operating in that experience high growth. But that doesn't mean because they're struggling that we have to struggle. And struggles in time and getting these open on time and on budget is costly. So we got to make sure that we figure out that cost, and we have to put that cost on the landlord and protect it in the landlord language to make sure that our free rent period and our construction time doesn't take place until we receive permit. Listen, we got to share in this expense, but I don't want that on you guys. It's not fair. It's not fair at the end of the project to get there and go, I have no working capital left. It's a horrible position to be in. I will not allow for you to be in that position. So in the next couple of days, we're going to really dive into that with Mark. I know Mark and Luba and I have been having this conversation for the last 2 days of making sure we solve this problem on time, on budget, and ramps appropriately. That's what I will be focused on for the next 30, 60 days.
I have a question.
Sam's coming.
Make it quick. We got a schedule to stick to.
What do you say?
Sorry, I've been lifting up my hand. Thanks. This is very remarkable having everyone here and seeing that many people. Thanks, Richie. My question is, I think one of the determining steps is the real estate process. And talking to a lot of people, everyone says, I'm in the search process, or, and also there seems to be a disconnect between LOI and operations. So you find a site, you do everything, but then, at the end of the day, they tell you, well, this facility is really not going to work because of this, because of that. So how are we working on improving the real estate search process and also working in line with operations to make sure that we don't get to the very end and find out in the third month, fourth month that this is not going to work?
Well, I think the first piece is communication, right? If there's any feedback that the operations team is picking up on that they're seeing in the operations of the school within that community or marketplace, it needs to get obviously circulated internally so we can figure out if there's changes that we need to make from a marketing perspective to support you. If there's something specific that impacts the way in which you guys are negotiating the deals, then that has to get filtered down to us as quickly as possible. So I'd be looking for those very specific points or those opportunities within those deals where that happens and see how that would apply then to the real estate process itself. We've made multiple changes over the years in terms of how we standardize our real estate negotiations process through and with our franchisees as a result of some of the feedback that we've received. A lot of it is what Richie just spoke to, right? The timeline of getting to a permit, the timeline for build out, the timeline for rent abatement. So a lot of those items that exist in our letters of intent are there based on the real world experience that has occurred over the last 30 years of us opening our schools as well as the franchisees opening their schools. So really it's a feedback loop is what I would speak to specifically to answer your question, is making sure that we're getting that information real time and live, and then asking ourselves, can we apply that to the real estate process at large early on in those conversations?
Chris, one of the questions I was actually going to ask you to share about was the pre-approval process and how that has supported the real estate component of things. So whether people were recently awarded and are just starting in real estate, or they're working on School 2 at this point, how's that pre-approval helped?
Yeah, so it's been a game changer for us as far as the innovation of the real estate process. I mentioned earlier that in general, commercial real estate, there's a typical process that everyone follows. You've got your local brokers, you've got the corporate office, you've got franchisees, and everyone is kind of working from a very similar playbook, right? We've kind of turned it on its head as we've really dove into these markets and learned these markets and understood the focus communities that we absolutely want to be in because we've taken the time to vet them. What we've recognized is that we've actually built a database of amazing information that helps us to make really good decisions very quickly. And so it used to be, and the early franchisees will attest to this, that we would say, okay, let's do it. Let's go into this market. Let's go out. Let's look at sites. What do you think? What do you think? What do the demos say, et cetera? And then make decisions on where to go. And so what we've done is we've taken that large body of evidence, that database that we've created with competitor tuition rates and typical teacher pay rates and really comprehensive market information that has allowed us to really accelerate the process of evaluating sites. So you guys aren't wasting your time looking at sites that otherwise shouldn't have been looked at in the first place because they don't meet some of the factors that we're looking for. Now, of course, the deals have to be negotiated, but real estate to me is very much like a sales pipeline. If we don't have enough leads coming in the top of the funnel, then we're not going to have a lot of sites to look at, which isn't going to give us the opportunity to make the best decisions on sites. So last year, through this pre-approval process, we underwrote and pre-approved 94 locations, right? And I thought, okay, that's a great start. It certainly had an impact in accelerating the number of LOIs and leases that our franchisees were signing. But the reality is I think we could triple or quadruple that number and really make this a game changer in terms of how we facilitate and support the franchisees through the real estate process. So through some automation work that we're doing behind the scenes and getting more effective with understanding those data points, we've been able to increase the pre-approval process. Year to date, we're at 61, 62, which puts us on track for somewhere in the high 190s, 200 pre-approvals a year. I still think we could triple that number and get even more aggressive. But the idea being that with all of this data that we've collected through the markets and through all the research that we've done, we're now looking at sites and saying yes and no to a site before obviously it even hits your plate, which I think makes the process more efficient. We're only focusing on the deals that have the real potential to get done.
And I would wrap that conversation up with one comment, which is, remember, this is a journey, guys, right? As Chris mentioned, he is pre-approving these sites on demographic. He's doing some underwriting with tuition and a range of acceptance of what we can pay. But at the end of the day, that package, when in between LOI and lease, is a lot of work that's being done too. And at the end of, before you sign that lease, which is, the deal is finished, that is pre-approved by myself and Allison and Bob. So I want to give you guys that comfort that nothing moves forward to a lease until we have gotten our eyes on that. And we're looking at all of it. We're looking at the basics, the demographics, the underwriting. We're looking at how much the loan is. We're looking at the ramp, right? Mm-hmm. The two things I want to know is, what is this ramp going to cost us, right? And do we have the capital to fund it, right? If this ramp says that this school is going to break even, in 13, 14 months, and it's going to cost us $300 to $350,000 of working capital carrying costs, I'm going to look at that loan term sheet and make sure that we have that baked into our loan process to make sure we never run out of capital. That's why I'm so also fixated on making sure that these schools are on time and on budget. Because if they're not on time, on budget, that whole analysis and that approval that we just went through is shot. And so, we were also talking about last night is that who's ultimately responsible in that journey to make sure that occurs, right? If you decide that you're going to upgrade your tile and it's going to cost you another $25,000, the question should be, where are you getting it from? Where is it in the budget, right? Where are you making up for it? Or you might say, you know what, I want the tile, I know it's out of my budget, but I'm gonna put the money up myself. Okay, as long as you understand the impact of your decisions, that's fine, guys. But I want to make sure that you're not out there on your own, floundering, and at the end of the journey, construction journey, you wake up and you're like, where's my working capital? It's gone, right? In time, on budget, or because we overspent in construction costs. I feel really good about our construction teams. I think they're 2020 and our partners are phenomenal partners. We're super proud of them, super happy with the work that they're doing for us. But I would just, again, wrap it up by saying, at the end, it ultimately comes to me, Allison, and Bob to make sure that we feel comfortable in you guys executing on that lease and moving forward. So with that said, guys, can we have a round of applause for our executive team?